Wow, DeLynn and I are super excited to be with you guys here in Minnesota.
Woohoo.
Come on, Unscripted Substance Church with Peter and Carolyn Haas. Just the best, the best. And we're at the downtown location.
Yeah, exactly. Right in the heart of Minneapolis. 133-year-old building.
This is incredible. We'll talk a lot about this, and of course, you'll get to see this amazing space that God gave you. And hey, it's great to see you. It's great to be together.
We love you guys so much.
Absolutely. I love you guys.
We've known each other a long time.
We have. Like, we literally are here because of what you guys have done for us over the years, you know? I mean, come on, we're like OG ARC.
We are.
Number 15.
You were church plant 15?
I know.
Yes.
I know.
That's hard to believe.
I know.
2004.
When I share that with a lot of the guys in the ARC, that's the first thing they say, 15. Like, I don't know. It's funny.
Hey, one of the things that we love hearing about is that origin story of Wisconsin, Minnesota, how God, your own salvation story, which I think is super important as it relates to the church plant. Why Minneapolis? Give us that real quick.
Well, I did not grow up in church. My dad was a scientist. I grew up in a liberal, basically non-Christian family, essentially. Wow. My mom was a believer, but like it wasn't in our culture. So I was just a rebellious, pot-smoking kid from Wisconsin. I actually became an electronic dance music DJ. I would tour nightclubs with my turntables, doing like progressive house music. And
old school vinyl. Like, this guy is legit. He's so good.
I've heard him do it one time at a art conference after party. I think.
Yeah, that's right.
You got good gear. You still got good gear.
That was fun. I literally was, after her dad's suicide and my friend died in the same week, I was working in a club that weekend, and I was just so depressed out of my mind. I literally was like, God, if you exist and you created the universe, then you should be powerful enough to show me what religion is the right religion. I was having like an existential crisis in the nightclub because I knew I'm like pretending. My job is to help people pretend to have fun. Yeah. If you really think about it, and everybody's drunk and stoned, and I was just so miserable. I was almost suicidal, and I prayed that prayer, God, and I remember snapping out of it. I didn't even know how to end it. I was like, and done, because I didn't know how to pray. But I thought I need a smoke break. So I started going out of the club, and a guy came up to me, grabbed me by the arm, and was like, dude, basically, nutshell, I feel like I'm supposed to tell you Jesus has a plan for your life and he wants you to follow him. And this was 30 seconds after I prayed that prayer. It so freaked me out that I literally prayed a prayer of salvation with him in a booth.
In the nightclub.
Yeah. And I went to church with him the next day. And what I didn't know is the church that I went to is the church she grew up at and led half the kids to Christ in the youth group.
And they were praying for me because my dad had died, and I'm dating this bad boy, Peter Haas.
This horrible guy who's going to bring her down. I was the collateral blessing.
You were bringing her down.
And but I didn't know anything about church. I'd never been in a contemporary worship church, and like it was weird. It was actually I'd never seen drums.
What city was this?
Marshfield, Wisconsin.
Middle of nowhere. Yeah. And but which is kind of funny because. So when you and Cleary asked me to bring my turntables to that one event, it started as a joke, but I felt like the Lord spoke to me, start producing electronic dance music again. And then when I did, because I had been writing worship, in 2017, our album went to the top 10 mainstream. And then we started getting calls to tour it all around the world. So Substance Variant ended up becoming like a huge revenue stream. But I say all of that to say, one of the reasons why we planted Substance is because I knew how to reach unchurched people who are liberal, well-educated, but they're open to God, but they just feel incompatible with church.
That's it. Yep.
And so when we were looking at Minneapolis with 16 major universities, I know how to talk to LGBT. I know how to talk to people who have high degrees or maybe a little more scientific, which is partly why like my preaching style is always humor, science, Bible, kind of mixing it like apologetics with humor. But that's why we got here, is because I knew how to grab that group and help them experience Christ. And so we're a little bit more of a creative arts church with, but we're also good at reaching those people that just have never stepped foot in a church before their whole lives.
So we started dating in high school and then came to college here in Minnesota and then went back and pastored for 9 years in central Wisconsin. So we pastored there. We literally thought we'd be there for life. In fact, we'd actually visit Minnesota and go, so glad I don't live in the big city. Like we had 2 of our kids in Wisconsin.
Wow. Too many lakes.
Thought we'd be there for life. And then the Lord literally started speaking to us to resign our church in Wisconsin and to come here and plant in Minneapolis. And part of it was the statistics of this city are so intense. So it's almost 4 million in population, and yet the city's very young. So 68% of our city is under 34. And if you're under the age of 34, less than 1% go to church. And then if you're over the age of 34, only 5% go to church. So there's a lot of great churches in this city. There's a lot of colleges in this city, but we were like, we got to reach these young college students before they marry the wrong person, have $200,000 in debt, and like go off on some crazy calling. It's like, let's get them planted into a local church. And so 2004, the Ark accepted us and we planted
we snuck
Substance
in
Church.
Before the Ark had standards.
I love it.
Like the approval process was a lot simpler, praise
Wow.
God. I don't know if we would even.
I was not there. They just had lunch with Peter,
Of course.
and they were
That's
like,
how
even there.
Billy had
It was
lunch.
yes. And he's like, I like them.
It was a good lunch.
Yes. And
It's
we
a
would
good
bring
plant.
Billy to come. I don't know if you know, we brought Billy several times to come preach at Substance.
Yes.
And
I do remember.
he
He
came. Our
loved you
church was
guys
so
big
young.
time.
He literally said, "Hey, it feels like a college student, group. You need to hire someone over 35 years old to be in your lobby and just greet people."
That is so great.
So
Literally,
our first,
our first campaign was 35 people over 35.
like that's what
That's our goal.
we're trusting God for.
Unbelievable.
No lie,
there's wisdom to that.
I paid people from our former church who were older by just paying for their hotel just to be greeters.
Just come.
Just come.
Just help make it
Just hang
not seem
out.
like it's just college.
Well,
students.
because I couldn't grow a beard, so I mean, like in those days.
And how old were you guys?
We were 29 when we planted, and our kids were 3 and 18 months. We hadn't had our son yet, and but we were the only ones that like owned a home, only ones that had ministry experience. Everyone else was 18, 19, and 20, and loved God, and that's it.
Yeah.
What were you going to ask?
I was just thinking, like, you were so young and, moved states, like so many of our planters. What do you think was one of your biggest mistakes early on
That's a good
that
question.
people could learn from
Yeah.
and
Don't
not
do this.
repeat? Yeah, no, like one thing, don't do this, what we did.
So you say to church planters now.
What's ironically what we
It's
did.
unscripted, so we do that one at you.
Well, what we did right is I had 1,000 sermons under my belt before we moved, which is very rare
of
for a
reps.
guy
That's
of 29.
amazing.
And so that enabled me, if you think about it, when you have 1,000 sermons under your belt, let's say most of them were terrible, right? But I still had maybe 1/3. Like I had 8 or 9 Christmas messages. Of them, maybe 3 good ones, right? But I could spend those first 3 years recruiting, team building, system creation, and that enabled us to scale faster than most church planners. And I see a lot of church planners that want to kind of jump into the big leagues, not because they're ready, but because they just couldn't express their gifts at the former place, right? But that critical mass though is hard. Like moving, we only knew 6 people in the Twin Cities when we moved here. So, and we were 3 hours away from our last place. So we didn't.
Yeah,
We didn't have spiritual
didn't
maturity,
have a lot of tourists
and we
from
didn't
the
have
other
so
place.
like all of our small groups in the beginning were all social. Like, let's go to a restaurant, let's go to Applebee's and have apps. But we didn't have people that were spiritually mature that could even lead a Bible study. So I think that was one of the harder things that we had is we were the only ones
when y'all
that.
talk, I like DeLynn's question to follow up. What do you feel like when if you have church, because church planners come there constantly. Yeah. They're learning. Right. And what is the big thing you're like, okay, here's the big landmark, here's the Mount Rushmore advice that you're like, is no matter where you're planning, who you're planning with, what the diversity, the dynamic, the demographic. What for you, Peter, and then for you, Carolyn? What are the okay? I'm gonna say this sentence. I'm gonna say this line to a church planter.
I would say you have to be a good recruiter, party thrower to plant. You also have to love preaching. Like, I hate to say it, but you do have to sit in front of a computer a little bit more. Like, there's 1,000 ways to be a pastor that don't require you to be a lead pastor, church planter, campus pastor. You can, I think there's a lot of ways to express your ministry calling, not church planting. And so it's more like a lot of people, they go to planting because they think they get the most control, but they don't understand the flip side is you're a slave to the pulpit, you're a slave to certain things, which are great if you're called to them. But I say, for a lot of pastors, I don't think they know what they're getting into, and they haven't really logged a few years to even know themselves before they do it, right?
And then I think for me, it would have to be such synergy and unity and alignment in calling and in your marriage.
Yes.
And so I think I was called into ministry at 13, and I always thought I'd be a missionary. I never thought I'd be a pastor, never thought I'd plant a church, but actually church planting is missionary work. And that's what Paul did, is he was a missionary church planter. And so we were so poor, and not in a poverty. Like, God provided all of our needs. I'm young and I'm old, never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging for bread. Like, every need. I have miracle stories of how God provided for us, but we had no money. And so because we had no money, our offices were in our home for 5 years. Do you know what I mean? Like, everything I wasn't paid for years. And so,
like the laundry chute was with my underwear was right next to the copy machine. And so the volunteer.
I didn't want to think about that.
It was awful.
Just a bad idea.
But Psalm 16, the boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. So for me, it was like, hey, my mission field has a Starbucks, an Anthropology, the Mall of America. Like, are you kidding? I get to live here and be a missionary. But I think because I had a missionary mentality, I could sacrifice to such a degree where it took us years to get a building, years to get.
So you're not afraid to tell them you better be ready to sacrifice.
Oh, absolutely.
What would you say, Glenn?
And I think
because we do launch trainings, and
yes,
if you said, what is the big thing that you tell a planter?
I think, like y'all said, especially you, Peter, everybody thinks it's so cool. And, that's just the next step to be in control. I want to be a pastor. But I think for us, looking back, and the best advice I could give, you got to love people. Yeah. I remember the weekend before we started our church, we saw a guy at the mall in our community that we respected so much. And we've told this story a lot.
We were in Dillard's.
But it marked us.
Shout out to Dillard's.
Yes.
And so we, kind of start talking about starting a
ministry,
church.
And we're excited.
Yeah, and we're so excited. And he's like, church would be great, wouldn't it, if it wasn't for the people? And we were just, we're 23 and 28.
He legit said that.
He said that.
He wasn't joking.
Seriously. He said, wouldn't it be great if it wasn't for the people?
And we admired him.
And we're like, well, we wouldn't have a church if it wasn't for the people. Yeah. So I just think it's got to, we've been talking a lot about going back to old school and just, you got to love people. Yeah. You've got to maybe not knock on doors every day, but maybe if that's what it takes, but you've got to love them through and through, the good, bad, and ugly, because let me tell you, in Louisiana, there were some hard ones to love.
Hey, everywhere.
Wait, are you talking about your husband?
Yeah, 100,000% still is.
Just, people are difficult, and they can be crazy, and all the things, and we had so many come through, and our kids would be like, "Whoa, what in the world?" And we would just try to love them, and we had a special grace, I think, on our life to love the unlovable. But I would say across the board, you can't pastor effectively or like Jesus if you don't love your people.
Well, you always pray, and you got to stay to me, you need to stay fascinated with humanity, and still find people and people in your community fascinating. Right. And I think sometimes we're not careful. We get fascinated with the ministry. We get fascinated with our calling. We get fascinated with our vocation of being pastors, leaders, preachers. And it's like, I think if I ever went back to school, I would study humanities. because I love thinking about why people make the decisions that they make, and why do they respond like they respond. And I'm not saying in a negative way. I just find it curious.
Yeah. Right.
I think, and to stay curious, we've been saying this a lot around Highlands. You know, we can't go pro. We got to stay rookies and amateurs, which is just you keep it real. It stays curious with, you know, people, blended families, single moms, and married couples, and senior adults, and you know, students. How important are students right now? And so, and DeLynn and I were talking a lot about leading together. I mean,
yeah, you guys are so great at that. I think, you know, not every couple does lead together, and that is okay. I know we talk a lot in ARC about especially the woman's role. There's no cookie cutter. You have to speak. You have to lead worship. You just do what God has called you to do, and however that works best in your situation. But for you guys, and I have seen the growth and the evolution of that somewhat, but how would you describe that journey of leading, co-leading together? Because you do it so well.
It started when we were 20 and we were literally newlyweds, and we were told, you're both youth pastors, you have one office, one computer, figure it out. And we fought like cats and dogs. Do you know what I mean?
You guys?
Oh yeah.
I can't even imagine that. Y'all look like you never had an argument.
Oh,
Like
no, we're so
our
feisty. We're so
our lead
different.
pastor,
Oh my
our
gosh.
lead pastor
Peter
and his
is
wife.
feisty. I can't believe it.
She came
I
into
can't
our
believe Peter's
office.
feisty. I can see her feisty.
She,
but not
wow, yeah, you have no idea. She's actually the sweet one. I like they actually, the lead pastor's wife came into our office and said, "Hey, Peter and Carolyn, the whole staff can hear you."
fighting.
And but actually, you know what? Fighting is integration. Fighting is the way you get. If you fight healthily, it's actually we call it intense fellowship, right? You are negotiating a win-win. So we, believe it or not, we write all of our sermons together. We
That each of you speak.
yes, and for a lot of people, I've noticed a lot of pastors' couples, what they don't like, they can't handle negotiating. And so what they do is they choose to disintegrate. In other words, we're not going to actually, like they actually purposefully don't do
wouldn't
ministry
that
together.
mean you're competing?
Well, it's almost like
if you disconnect like that.
Right. Well, because ultimately, we decided, let's just fight it out, be in total unity about where our strengths and weaknesses are. And then we are fully integrated. Then I don't have to silo. A lot of people, they actually, the reason why they don't work well with their spouses is because they don't know how to handle conflict. And it's easier to disintegrate, silo.
You go over here. I'm going to go over here.
Separate their callings.
Separate their roles. Super
Than it
strong
is to
lanes.
figure it out. And so to a certain degree, I think conflict management is something that a lot of couples just haven't figured out yet. But your life will eventually integrate you, right? Because if you don't, you won't make it to that next phase.
But I think you're also a really secure, like you are my biggest cheerleader.
I was about to say
I mean,
that.
Peter is constantly, he tells the church, he talks about me all the time to the church. And like, you're always, Carolyn, preach more. You need to get, like, you
Totally.
are my number. And then I'm your biggest cheerleader. Do you know what I mean? And so I think because we cheer each other on versus compete with each other. And then I always say, I wouldn't want to do this without, you don't want a church just led by Carolyn. Oh my word. Like it would just be awkward. Do you know what I mean? And you don't want a church just led by Peter. That would be
course.
awkward. But
Yeah, very
together,
awkward.
we are such a good team. Do you know what I mean? And so
Absolutely.
I
Very
think
awkward.
What's to lead in your
Yes.
strengths?
correct.
Each
So
what you
we know
bring.
what we're good at. We know what we're not good at. We keep growing. So that's the other thing is like
That's good.
he challenges me and pushes me. Like even this is funny, but he'll write jokes in my sermons that I'm so uncomfortable with because
That's
I am not a joke. I'm not a comedian.
Yes.
And I will do it out of obedience and submission. Like, okay, he told me I have to do this joke. I have to do this
This
joke.
last Sunday, I had the best
amazing.
follow-up joke for her, and she didn't
cut
do
it.
it.
I did
she
cut
And
it.
I was like,
said
oh,
in the moment,
babe,
she
you
wasn't
totally
feeling it.
left the gold in the gold mine.
Right there.
But when I do the joke,
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
people respond. And it's good for me to like, okay, I can't just trust what I'm comfortable with. I have to get better at storytelling. I will shove Bible down people's throat and I will be super intense. And so like, I have to learn to smile, so like we coach each other, we encourage each other.
But even beyond our marriage, once you're integrated, you actually, the other staff understand, one of the top things I look for in my high-level staff is the ability to fight and repair easily. Like, if I can't have a good fight, I want them to be able to push back, but I also want them to negotiate. And so getting there fast, and so it's beautiful. That's why we're able to integrate someone like Nate as our executive.
Puccini.
We're able to fight and repair, and we don't have to disintegrate or silo or turn to command and control.
But it's also a mutual submission.
Yes.
So, you know what I mean? We're just mutually submitted to one another, which is what the Bible calls marriage to be, is, it's not a domination, but it's a mutual submission. And so
I just love that, because I've never known a couple that does that. What you're just saying, that you write your messages together, or write it and then let each other add things. Because I know for us, it's funny you say that. That is a source of contention whenever we have to speak together. Mm-hmm. Oh, because I always feel, insecure with what he's telling me. Well, you didn't think, my content was great or whatever. So we'll always bicker about it.
Yes.
And then, if I write it up, he'll put a joke and I'm like, I don't know if I can say that. But I just think that is so cool how y'all work on that together.
Well, and it's not even like you have to do it in order to be mature, right? But because there's certain things that we can't pick out a worship list together if we had to.
I love that. Like, so you'll have me look at your sermons on Thursday before he preaches on a Sunday. And you've learned so I don't have feedback on Sunday after he does it, because I've already looked at it on Thursday. So I don't have to be the critiquing wife on a Sunday, like, I can't believe you said that. Yeah. Instead, we look for things, and you've learned, instead of being defensive, to go, if even 50% of the congregation thinks
5%.
like Carolyn, he's like, I better listen to her perspective.
Because if I can make a point without making an enemy, it's worth it.
Great.
If I can uplift people with truth rather than oppress people, and she's got that one twist of a word, just don't say that.
We think so differently. I mean, we literally see the world so differently. And so, I mean, we fight a lot, but when I say fight, it's just, we just misunderstand each other. We miscommunicate. It's like we literally speak a different language, and yet we adore each other so much that we're able to like push through, because we know we just want the best for each other.
It is interesting because you're different types of, I mean, like I would never have my message ready on Thursday. Yeah. I mean, it's
totally.
I think I'm last minute. I don't think it's last minute because of preparation. It's just, I've always been wired last minute because of being a little bit, I try to be more intuitive to the moment, to those things. And I think as you get older, you're trying to preach off of the top of the barrel. And Highlands has helped me to plan better. But, and she's a planner. And she writes it and rewrites it, which is incredible, because she minds the goal better than probably I do. But it is interesting that when I do communicate, normally if I'm done or midway in between a service, she's the first person I'm wanting to know. Affirmation, correction, how could I adjust it? What was my tone?
Yes.
Where were my hands?
Yes.
Was I too loud? Was I overbearing?
Yes.
And nobody gives better feedback than you. And I think I've learned, and it took me a long time, and I stole this from Jason Laird, that feedback is my friend on communication. For a lot of years, feedback was my enemy. I felt less than, because of your own mental challenges you have about communication. And sometimes you're your worst critic. And you think that was terrible. And people are like, no, man, that was one of the better ones. Right. And then you think it's a better one. And it's like, that's a little flat. In those kind of things. And you both are creatives. So talk to me a little bit about you both have a creative bent. You're in a creative city, which is amazing. I mean, just the restaurants here and the vibe and the art. And
such a different world than the South.
It just feels so good. I mean, Prince is from here. Come on. When you're a one-namer, that's all you need.
In fact, Prince was trying to buy this building.
Yes.
Wow.
And we were competing with Prince.
I mean,
I wonder what he would have done with it.
I know, it would be purple.
Studio or something.
It would be a nightclub.
So creative, enjoy technology, future thinkers, and that's why I think you're so valuable to the body of Christ, and your church is, and into art. You both on the lead team, and you both speak into that. So give us a minute or two on, the creative side, how you manage it, and then how do you unleash it?
Well, okay, so my background is music producing and film, and so I'm kind of a multimedia artist in a lead pastorate. So, my creative team gets the best. They get the epic red camera. They get the so in some ways it's kind of fun for me I like to nitpick over everything from LED walls to a lot of documentary film style teaching. And so in some ways, like Carolyn and Nate will run the church and I'll run a lot of the creative vision aspects of it. And because she's a little bit more administrational than me. And then I'm able to kind of dream out, crazier things. So if we're doing like electronic dance music album, or if we're doing we're doing we do sitcoms here a lot, or like I'm writing the script for a comedy film. And so I'm able to dabble a little bit more, but it also took us about 15 years for me to get into that sweet spot, because at the end of the day, it still always comes back to church planting. I'm straightening chairs,
shepherding people,
working the foyer, or whatever, recruiting for this ministry, that ministry. So in saying that, I just think about most pastors out there. They're like, well, when will I get into my sweet spot? You'll never get into your sweet spot, because every time you launch a new campus, you'll create more burdens, right? But for me, like, she's kind of liberated me. She's a better pastor of our staff than me, and I'm more on the, big thinker. How can we rearrange the way we think about multi-site for the next generation? Those types of things. And so we tag team a lot in that aspect.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Unscripted. We want to take a moment to thank Convoy of Hope for sponsoring this episode. Since 1994, Convoy of Hope has made a profound impact in Jesus' name, serving over 250 million people across the globe through disaster relief, feeding programs, women's empowerment initiatives, and so much more. They specialize in equipping and mobilizing churches of all sizes to address needs within their community. Whether you're organizing an outreach event or just supporting families that are in need, there are countless ways to partner with Convoy of Hope and make a meaningful difference for Jesus. To learn more and access the free resources that they've created for the ARC family, visit our website at arcchurches.com/partners.
It's fun for me because I would say I'm not a dreamer. I have a lot of vision, but I'm not a dreamer. And so he relaxes by dreaming. He always wants to dream about the future. So I think God put us together because his dreams could last hundreds of years, you know what I mean? And then I'm more the get it done, you know what I mean? And let's execute. And so I make Google Docs for everything, you know what I mean? And I'm a bullet point girl, so I just think it's fun for me to be able to serve him. And so we do play that weird role of like, I'm actually his assistant, but I'm also his co-leader and I'm his biggest cheerleader, you know what I mean? And so I play a very unique role, but it's fun. Do you know what I mean?
Vice versa, now that she's speaking a lot.
Yes.
I'm helping
He'll
her.
help, yes. What's the right sermon that I should preach in this church with this context?
Or I'm giving her like huge blocks of content, almost teeing it up like a ghostwriter for her.
Yep.
And then she can tweak it, make it her own. Yep. So that way, we're always kind of tag teaming based on the week. And so in some ways it's kind of fun to really operate symbiotically like that, because we're always in sync.
And then the only other place I say I probably am creative at Substance that most people wouldn't know is I am very involved in our worship ministry. So I say I'm the biggest worshiper, I'm on staff, but I'm from the front row, you know what I mean? So I listen to more worship music than anyone else. I help pick out all of our songs, and then specifically even our Christmas and Easter and special services. I just really manage that from a theological, from a beats per minute, from an energy, from a...
She doesn't write music, but she'll...
I'm just so, to me,
what
it's
did that
so
look like
important.
if you scale that? Raising kids, not a lot of staff, pre-1000.
Yep.
what was that? Give me a minute on what that looked like for you.
So I wasn't doing any. Yeah. So in the
so
early days, I was
scale
doing,
that to to some of the
I've always done
younger
whatever the church needed. So you asked earlier what was our biggest mistake in the early years. It was actually we didn't have good kids ministry, and so I led it. I'd never served a day of kids ministry in my life till we planted the church, and so. But I did it because that's what the church needed. And then I did QuickBooks because that's what the church needed. And that was my first panic attack, was literally doing QuickBooks. Like, I didn't even know what a panic attack was. And I'm like doing QuickBooks and my throat is clenching and I'm like, what? So I just did whatever the church needed.
You didn't hear me preach the whole first year.
First year and a half of the church.
Right.
I never heard
Because
of
you
it.
was needed
I don't think
in the
DeLynn
back.
did
Yeah.
much for me.
So I've always done, what do we need? Okay, we need someone to help with small groups. I'm going to help with small groups.
And we need more of that.
Yes.
You know, with church planners, you have to do whatever it takes
Correct.
at that
Correct.
point in time in that season.
It was
keep
interesting you
going.
said, the sweet spot. It just, I think the danger is assuming that you can get there. That timeline is different for everybody.
It is.
In a lot of factors: family, children, finances, team. Are you mobile? Do you have a permanent facility? Who did you hire? Because sometimes somebody else's hire isn't more important now. And it took, I would not say that, it took us all a while to get in our sweet spot.
And then even when you reach that, you think something changes and you're
always.
You're back
screaming
there doing it.
again.
The first, when we were in the pre-1000, your life was everything.
You're just,
We'd going out to dinner and meetings I remember we cleaned the church.
Yeah,
totally.
For a lot of
Ran the
time.
copies.
On
for
Saturday,
worship,
we're cleaning
all the things.
Kiko's.
And when you're the lead
Kinko's,
pastor,
yes, making the bulletin
folding
every
the
Saturday.
bulletin, photocopying with 3 kids
Right.
in a cart. Literally
Yeah,
photocopying them.
you did that.
We called it the bullet instead of the bulletin.
The bullet.
That was
we
our
were
way of
that
being
cool.
like
Be
hip.
cool.
we
Yeah.
were that
You
cool.
And instead of it being an 8.5 by 11
Minneapolis.
folded, it was
Oh,
trifold.
bro.
Like, that was
That was cutting
that
edge.
copy and paste
Cutting
logo on the
edge.
front. That thing hit. I remember us doing a few of those things that you just change it a little, and you'd be like, "This is going to change the whole weekend."
Yeah,
Oh,
or Easter,
gosh.
I would bring Easter lilies in laundry baskets, and then the pollen would get everywhere, all over
Yeah.
everything. And like now, we don't even do
We
flowers
had
on our stage. Like
we
I
had a
laugh at what we
toll-free
did.
number with our church name in it. Dial
Oh.
866-99 substance.
Oh, we love it.
Bro, you don't even know how cool we were.
225-753 CARE.
Care, yes it was.
Still
Yes.
is. It still
And
is.
then
It is still
remember-
Healing Places number. CARE.
for real?
We grabbed that number.
But it was also at the beginning, this other lady in our churches, it was like one number off. And she would get calls for the church all the time.
She got mad
And
at
then
us.
she said, I kept getting so many calls, I had to try the church. So
She did.
And
That
then
is
I remember she came and was
started
wearing us out.
coming.
That
Yeah,
is
and
the
we
best.
loved her so much.
That
But
is the
yeah,
best.
so talk a little bit more about, you touched on it, but you didn't get to finish, about kids. You have amazing children. How have you guys done it? I know you just had a daughter get married. It's just, you don't want to lose your kids along the way.
Right.
And y'all were fantastic parents. We have noticed that. We
Very
admire that because that's our heart. I mean, we love Jesus with all our heart and ministry. But our family is so
It's
important. If you lose your
true.
family,
And now grands.
and
Yes.
now grandbabies,
I
so
know,
get ready for that.
I cannot wait to learn how to.
But y'all have done that so well. So give some encouragement in that. How did you guys do it?
We have fought hard to keep our marriage really strong and healthy. And we've disappointed so many people. You disappoint staff, you disappoint church members because you're not available to do all the coffees and the dinners, but we've never compromised this. You know what I mean? And then we've always kept our family and our kids. So we always involved them, but we're never legalistic about it. And then I think family dinners, vacations, and then always telling our kids miracle stories. So always telling them miracle stories. And they would learn the hardships of the people that were going, like we'd always take the hardships of people going through the church, never say their names. But at our dinner table every night, we would talk about the failed marriage and what can we learn from it. And we'd talk about the drama, again, it wasn't gossip, but it was leadership lessons of let's learn from this mistake and how can we be different as a family.
You don't want to lecture your kids, right? But you can, if you ask for their opinion, what would you say to this person?
Yeah.
And we're teaching them pastoral skills at the dinner table. But
and then always telling them miracle stories. So even when my girls went to college, I would still text them every week a miracle story that happened. Because I just wanted them to know God's still on the move. He's still healing people. Listen to what happened. And so that they always felt that connection of the miracles.
But there's no amount of campuses or professional successes or buildings that that even remotely compare to the joy of watching your kids love the Lord and love His church. And so I'm so glad that a lot of our church plateaus, where our plateaus I could have kept the church going up and to the right, but a lot of our church plateaus, I actually think were strategic for loving our kids. And we turned our 3-year goals into 8-year goals. Instead of, like, I see a lot of young couples, they're launching books, podcasts,
doctorates,
all these things.
Not bad, but
They're good things, but like at the end of the day, if you're, like, I've always had this goal to always have 2 hobbies in common with each of my kids. And I have this teaching called, it takes 2 hours to net 10 minutes of good dad time. And so if I got to play 2 hours if I got to watch baby seals on YouTube with my daughter in order to net that 10 minutes of dad time, or play, Fortnite with my son in order to get that 10 minutes of dad time, I have to earn that. But if I don't have those common interests, those hobbies, which is really hard when your kids are little, right? And then, we had to there are staff members we lost because my kids were the priority. And yet, in the juggling act of life, your marriage, your kids, they're glass balls. You can only drop them so many times. Church will always bounce back. Your speaking opportunities to do degrees, books, they're rubber balls. They always bounce back. Sure. And so it's so fun to watch my kids, and now my 2 adopted sons-in-laws, who are all doing ministry, and they're loving it, and people love them. It's fun for me. It's actually more fun than any building I've ever had, any best-selling book I've ever had. All of that, trade it all.
But you've taught us that, and you actually have said to us, hey, the people that matter the most are those who have your last name. You know what I mean? And when we've all watched pastors die, and then 2 weeks later, no one's even thinking about them or talking about them. And you've told us that so many times of, like, the church ain't thinking about you like you're thinking about them. Not in a cold-hearted way, but in a keep the family close.
Right. The reality is it is built on Christ. We are paper plates. And the meal is served, and we get to be a part of that meal. But then the meal will be over, and no one will think about the paper plate much. Where I think where you get messed up is you think you're China, and you're irreplaceable, and you're a piece of it. And none of us are that way in the kingdom of God.
And you find all your identity in this. I think at the end of the day, it's got to be all about our family, because that's what it's all about. And if we lose everything, we got to have our family, and Jesus. So y'all have modeled that so well. But I love what you even said, the staff and different things at the church. It's going to have to take a back seat to my family, and that says a lot to them. They might perceive it negatively in some regards, but really they should admire that. And that's huge, because in longevity, when you're planting those seeds, you're going to reap a harvest, and y'all have done that so well.
We're all very fortunate. I mean, we've seen great churches grow. We've been a part of great churches. I mean, your campuses have grown. I was at the new piece of property. Phenomenal. Only God. This is a God story. What we've seen happen in ARC. Who would have ever thought Church Plant 15? And, you guys jump on the lead team early on with Billy. Now we just launched 1,160. Getting ready to have a great season, fall season right around the corner of some really cool churches to plant. And we've watched our friends, some of them really make a huge impact around the world. So it's been, and we've seen tragedy and all that, but I always think, man, we're very fortunate to have lived in this season, to be in the game that God put us in during this time, in humanity, to reach people, technology, digital, all these things. Everything's got an upside and a downside. But y'all have seen some incredible things, and you've witnessed a lot of miracles. That's been the little bit. I want to wrap up, but I want the miracles have been a part of your life. You've seen the supernatural a lot, and I'm glad that you guys that's such an important thing right now, because I think we need to talk a lot about the supernatural and miracles.
Yeah. Well, I think God took us on a journey. And, we were a portable 11 and a half years, and it had 8 different buildings fall through. And, 8, can I just say that again? 8 buildings fall through.
People need to hear that.
Like 8 buildings that you prayed, prayer walked, marched,
8.
dreamed,
Did 5
invest
months
money
of,
into to do all the preliminary work, the
Yes.
city,
That you don't
the
get back,
county.
huh?
And and you don't get that money
don't
back.
get it,
And
yeah.
then 6 months later, you go back to your church and say, so sorry, that building fell through. Now we're back to the drawing board. So 8 buildings, a lot of loss of people, just delay, you detour, you just don't know what God's doing. And it wasn't until our first building was 2016. And at that moment, our daughter was 14 or 15, I think. And I'll never believe touring it with her. And she's a dreamer. She could conquer the world. Like, she's very much like her dad. And I remember the Lord just showed me, Carolyn, these delays were so that your daughter Elijah could see nothing's just handed to you. Like, you pray, you fast, you pray, you give it all, you give it all, you give it all, you pray, and it takes a ton of people to come together for miracle buildings. And so every one of our buildings are miracles that only God can get the credit for. And I think I think when you're a good leader, I think God has to break you a little extra, and I think he has to take you on a journey a little bit longer, so that, because we all know Peter's really smart and he's really strategic, and I think if we would have just been given everything, like, everyone would have been, it's because Peter's so smart and strategic. Yeah. And instead, Mr. Smart and Strategic had to go delay, detour, closed door, diagnosis, sickness, pain, loss, betrayal, misunderstanding, more loss, and then miracle building. And we can't get the credit. But the only thing we didn't do was quit.
Right.
We just didn't quit.
Every building we got.
So great.
Every building that we went into, of the 13 in our 593 Sundays of portability, although who's counting?
Right.
Don't remember.
They said no to us 3 times before they said yes. Every building we've ever been in said no to us 3 times. We had so many young people in our church. We had probably the lowest income per attendance ratio of any church I've ever heard of. when we broke 2,000 members
in America.
In America.
In the world.
Like when we broke 2,000 members, we only had the income of a 100-member church. And so it was complicated.
You know how back in the day you wrote letters of top givers? They were handwritten. Well, our daughter, who was 8 years old, got a letter in the mail. I still have the letter. And she gave $80. She gave $80 and made it into our top givers.
That shows how low.
And that's when we realized, we were like, oh Lord.
Goodness.
Because she gave all her money away. It was Christmas and birthday money.
Even when we managed to raise $5 million, we couldn't spend it for 5 years because of zoning discrimination. I was so depressed that to be honest, I thought maybe I'm just an incompetent leader. And that's when our first miracle happened. My second daughter, True, who was 10 years old at the time, came up to me, started petting me one day, like, Dad, I don't want you to be depressed. I know you're sad. And she goes, I asked the Lord, when is he going to give us a building? And she goes, guess what? He told me by this time next Thursday, you're going to find a building with a balcony. And so don't be discouraged, Dad. And then she ran off, and I'm like, whoa, come on back here. Like, what do you mean by this time? She goes, well, like, duh, Dad, don't you talk to God? Like, it was almost like, she goes, I just closed my eyes, and he showed me, your daddy is going to find a building with a balcony covered in red by this time next Thursday. And I almost laughed at her because of how specific it was. But then in that moment, the Lord was like, Peter, is anything too difficult for me? And I was like, no. Well, so then the next couple of days passes. I don't have any real estate meetings planned. How am I supposed to make this happen? And then the Tuesday before the Thursday, my finance guy calls me and he says, Pastor Peter, I totally forgot to tell you about a real estate meeting in downtown Minneapolis, right next to the convention center. And my first question was, does it have a balcony? Like you'll find a building with a balcony.
Yep.
And he goes, I don't know, but meet me in 2 hours. My daughter hears me on the phone talking about a building, and she goes, Dad, you're talking about a building, aren't you? Remember, if it doesn't have a balcony, it's not the one the Lord is going to provide. She goes, oh, I forgot to tell you. Dad, you'll know this. The Lord said to me, you'll know this building is the one when you look up and say, wow. And he even showed me what it's going to look like. And she goes, I'll draw a picture of it today at school. You take pictures and then we'll find out if it's the same building. And so then, sure enough, I walked into Historic Wesley. I
We
looked
say,
up,
wow.
I said, wow. And then I freaked out like, oh my gosh. And then by the time I got home, she came running up to me with her picture, and it was identical to the picture I took 4 hours earlier. And, so
But that was 2013, and we didn't buy this building till 2018.
So we decided on Thursday to go for it,
Yeah.
but it still took
Yeah.
a fight. And same with our other building. It was a $26 million building we got for $2.3 million, but we had to fight the city for it.
Sure.
Like, it ended up coming down to a city vote where a tiebreaker, an exchange student in high school
was the tiebreaking
made
vote.
the decision.
It's the craziest
Like
story.
every one of our buildings was like a $20 million miracle that was decided by the weirdest thing.
Nate, as executive pastor here at Substance, you've been with Peter and Carolyn a long time.
Yeah.
And what we loved in our time together in Unscripted was, they talked about the ups, the downs, the hardships, the lean and the abundance.
Yeah.
You've been through that with them, gaining campuses, losing property.
Yeah.
What has it been like as being on the team and just being called to them and called to this?
Well, I feel like I'm a product of a church plant. I was
Wow.
a business owner here in Minneapolis. We're in downtown Minneapolis.
We are.
I had stores all around the metro here and was running my business, very young and successful, but isolated and miserable. And it was actually an invite to an ARC church plant that
Wow.
changed my life. A guy just said, "Hey, would you like to come to church with me?" And I finally said yes after about 6 months. And so for me, I'm a product of someone saying yes to the call of God on their life. So that, for me, I'm just humbled to serve in
Yeah.
the church. I feel called to my pastor. I think that's different and unique, even for my life. I don't really feel like I'm called to a role or a position, but
How long you been at the church?
I've been at the church 16 years,
How long on team?
13 years.
What's your biggest advice to being on a team?
Don't quit. Don't quit. Stay with it. Stay
Yeah.
pure. Stay committed. Stay planted. Wait. I think a lot of pastors and leaders I get a chance to help churches is they tend to overestimate what should happen in the next couple years, and they tend to underestimate what God could do over a decade. I'm a product of that. I get to be a part of a move of God in our city, in our region. It's humbling.
Minneapolis is such an iconic city.
Yeah.
It's historical, and then this facility, of course, you'll get a lot of that. It's this truck right here is iconic. And so this is just an incredible vibe in the city. And we're going to walk around a little bit. But why do you love this city, and why is this location important?
Well,
I know it's a lot of history, and we'll talk about that, but give me your take on this.
We're a very youthful city, and for us, we're multi-site. We have locations around the city, but we see this as a stake in the ground, an icon in what it's expensive to be in the city. Everyone wants to be in a city until they have to pay the price of being in a city. But for us, I think it marks youth culture, history, the church. 9 generations of Christians have worshiped in this building, and we see it as a continuation of getting to be here, and believe that God can transform Minneapolis. We're sold out on that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've got guys that are like, I got to get downtown. I got to get downtown.
There's a lot of
but
that.
there's an upside and a downside to downtown.
Yeah.
And then and it's what has that been like?
Well, I'll say it's expensive and it's transient. So we know that as people live in the city, they tend to be more youthful. We have a lot of young, educated people that they're starting their first career here. They're in our city, but they may be moving to Seattle, to Austin.
Right.
So
or moving out to the suburbs
or moving to
where
the
another
suburbs.
location is. Yeah.
So we know we're pastoring them here for a season. And we also know we have to have a lot of money to pastor in the city.
Yeah.
It costs a lot to be here, costs a lot to manage it, and you have to be willing to stay.
Does winters affect the city?
In Minneapolis?
Each campus differently?
Yeah, I would say it's
Or is everybody pretty much conditioned?
Well, I would say downtown is unique. We have skyways that go across our whole entire city. So we're built for the winter, though, in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So.
We're going to be dressing out with the Timberwolves in a little bit.
Yeah, we're
going to play the Warriors, going to dominate the Warriors here as the T-Wolves. But this building right here it's just, and you were telling me there's some other things here, like one of the first indoor malls.
Yeah, Minneapolis is the home to the indoor mall. We invented it here, and they work here in Minnesota because
Home of the Vikings.
Home of the Vikings.
Home of the
Timberwolves, the Wild, the Twins.
It keeps going.
We have it all.
Come on. And then so this building's history is just incredible.
Yeah. 130 years old. 9 generations of Christians have worshiped in this facility. Actually, for the first 40 years, the tower was a 24-hour prayer tower. There's people in there for 24 hours a day for almost 40 years.
And Wesley, give us a little
yeah,
Wesley.
This was dedicated.
Give us a little Wesley history here in Minneapolis.
John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, this building was actually opened 100 years to the day of his death. And dedicated.
Wow.
And it was actually the first mega church in America. It was the first large church auditorium. Seats, back then, it seat like 2,000 people. Today, Americans are a little bigger, so a little less.
And then you had like a skyscraper here.
Yeah, they had a 20-story skyscraper that the church owned. They had a community center in it. It's actually where the Minneapolis Lakers started. Was in the church community center and played basketball there.
Did LeBron actually play here? He's been playing that long?
Actually, it started right there. It started right there. People don't know that. Top secret.
Well, it's just again, what I love about it is you have different campuses that have different expressions, but you've been able to keep that culture of youth, hope, outreach, loving the city.
100%.
I mean, y'all have a good outlook as a church. You've always had that outlook of hope, healing, new beginnings. Keep it up. You're not a negative environment.
No.
How's that been important, and how does that filtrate down to the staff?
Well, Pastor Peter, Pastor Carolyn, their heart is really to reach unchurched people. And so our church is built on reaching youth culture and reaching unchurched people. Everyone in our city is a 29-year-old with their master's degree, and our church reflects that. But we believe that, hey, you can make a point without making an enemy. And that's really the heart of our pastors, heart of our church. And you can be right, but a lot of times you're dead right. And we're in the middle of a city that has been the center of a lot of conflict in the last decade.
I mean, what with the George Floyd, situation.
He was killed just 6 blocks from here.
Just right here. I mean, how historical is that in our era, in our time as a church, and so a lot of things have happened here, and you guys have been able to keep Christ, hands and feet of Jesus, in those different seasons.
Yeah, I mean, we initially did board up our building when that was happening, but we felt convicted. Pastor Peter's like, we got to take those boards off. We got to reach our community. And I think God's given us a piece of land that we're called to protect.
And you do a lot of outreach here.
Yeah, we do. We feed 4,000 families a week through our Love the City, through
partnerships.
Through our Servolution, a partnership with you and all that God's doing here in our community. In fact, the most valuable part of our property is our back parking lot. That's where we do ministry, reaching people, haircuts, giving food away, taking care of people's needs, praying with them, reaching the community behind us. There's literally, just south of here, 154 different languages are spoken in the community just south of our building. So we have a calling to reach the nations through this.
That's neat. I love being downtown. I think it's a lot of fun. Nate, one of the things that you get to do, and I'm grateful, and a lot of people are grateful for it at ARC, is you get to be a part of the global side of what we do. You're always at a lot of the conferences, Canada, Ireland, South Africa, on and on, representing the heart of ARC church planting, working with all those that are planting churches around the world. Give me a minute on just how's it going? What are we learning? What's happening around the world with our teams?
Well, heart of my pastor is always has been to serve the global church, and so from day one we've had that expression in our church. And my first trip was traveling with Pastor Peter and Carolyn to Europe, and hey, we're planting churches all around the world right now. It's actually, I think people don't know what's happening, but some of these countries are really moving, and the number of plants outside of the United States, I think we're around over 100.
Over 100. And that's been something that we want to find leaders, kingdom-minded leaders. You guys have spent a lot of time with them. And again, so much out of the heart of Substance, Seacoast, Highlands, Life Church, on and on, Next Level. I just go on and on with churches, what Randy Bezek cares about.
Amazing.
Just there's some guys who really care about it. And you've been a little bit of that bridge.
Well, the heart of ARC, your heart is to serve and really not expect anything back. They need to pay it forward, and we're teaching that. We're ensuring that's happening. and we're ensuring we're protecting the integrity of why we do what we do, and that's really the key. And I get to serve in doing that.
Yeah. Where do you see the like global? We're doing a lot in Europe. And that's some cool thing. There's a lot of excitement right now. It was ARC England, ARC Ireland, now it's ARC Europe.
ARC Europe.
So why are you excited about that?
Well, I think
there's some great leaders there.
I think it's the right time because there's some leaders with the right heart, and that's the key. Do the leaders have the right motive and the right heart to build it the right way? Yeah. And we can now do. I mean, it's easier today than ever to actually work across multiple languages, and that's really been a barrier for us, especially in Europe. There's a few wars fought over there over some stuff. And so we're working through that, but I see it working out finally.
No more launch training battles.
No, we're not fighing over launch.
Connected.
We're just getting connected. We're working together. You know, here's the church.
I appreciate you.
Yeah,
you have a heart for people. You love our family, and I just thank God you're one phone call away to help somebody.
Humbled to serve.
And I really appreciate that.
Church is really a longevity sport. At the end of the day, you know, we would always have like 5 years of no growth and then massive growth. God would give us huge growth. And it just didn't look like that when I would see other pastors, right? Because you show up at ARC, everybody just felt like it was like this, which is sometimes just perception. Whereas for us, it was more like, and then it was a big jump. And so like even the university that the Lord just gave us, you know, I think if you just stay in the game long enough, God will give everybody a windfall at some point, but you just gotta not get so emotional and quit in the process.
You know, so you see these things happen that over time, God will do it. God, the money will come in. The dream that you have in your heart to launch a dream center, do a missions trip, have a second campus. If you do, just stay at it long enough.
Everything great in Moses' life started at 80 years old. And if I always remind myself when I get impatient, like what if God was just prepping me and God was like, Peter, chill. All your dreams will come true between 80 and 89 years old. Yeah. Would you chill if you knew I would do it? Yeah. And you knew that you would be able to enjoy it? I would, but a lot of us, if that thought depresses us, it's usually because there's idolatry, ministry idolatry in our hearts. In fact, that's
envy.
Yeah, and it's usually the reason why, because a lot of times I think substance grew really fast, and the Lord purposefully, for my own heart's sake, had to mess with me so that I would not interpret that growth as coming from me. And so some of those guys that grow really fast, the Lord will stall them out just because He loves them. Yeah. You know, so
God
just keep your heart right.
He protects His glory.
He does.
But I'm so thankful for ARC because we still showed up. There was a 5-year period where I think we were discouraged for 5 years. Do you know what I mean? Where it felt like loss after loss after loss.
Everyone would ask us, how's your Easter?
Yeah.
It was like lower than the year before.
You know, lost another staff member, no building yet, but we still showed up. And I know a lot of pastors who, when they're going through a hard time, they don't want to show up. They skip conference. They don't want to. And I'm like, we were at every altar call. We were weeping before the Lord. We would go to every mentor at the ARC and say, Help. What are we not seeing? Yes. Show us our blind spots. How can we be better? Like, we were teachable, we were humble and humble before the Lord, and then stayed in relationship. Yes. And so that would be my, begging everyone who's listening today is stay in relationship, stay humble, keep getting wisdom, keep seeking the Lord. So,
That's good. That's a good way to. It's a good way to end it because that is huge. Because you see people that go through the tough storm, isolate, hide. And they or get a little upset for whatever. Right. And it's like, what is somebody, I was talking to one of our old friends and he said something like, God really grew this church. He just had exponential growth. And he said, man, it just in a minute it turned around. He said it was a minute that took 20 years. Yeah. It was a 20-year minute.
Right. Yes.
And I was like,
But everybody's time will come.
Always.
And if you don't quit, like you said, we win. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's just staying in there, even when there's opposition. Like you said, you got 3 no's to every time there was a new building. And I think so many times if it's opposition, well, it's not God.
Yes.
That
Right.
doesn't always mean that. So
Correct.
just
Right.
stay in there, stay in the fight, stay in the battle, stay trusting. You're not going anywhere. And then God is going to do the supernatural and bring the miracle stories every single time.
Yes.
Hey, thank y'all.
Hey, we
Thank
love you
you,
guys so
guys.
much.
We
Thank you for
love
believing
y'all.
in us and cheering us on and loving our kids. You guys have loved our children. Like, thank you for just loving our kids and our
We
family.
love
love
y'all.
you.
Thank
Yeah,
you
we
for
love y'all.
loving
Thank
us. You are the best.
At ARC, relationships are everything. We don't just plant churches, we build life-giving communities that transform cities for the glory of God. With ARC, you're never alone in the journey, and we want to provide practical coaching, resources, financial models that are rooted in generosity, help you plant a church, a large launch church to thrive from day one. If you feel called to plant a church, you want to partner with us to plant more ARC churches, we want to help that. So join a network of more than 1,132 church plants, thousands of partners in the ARC family making a real difference. One community at a time, let's plant more churches. So visit arcchurches.com to learn more. Plant with us, partner with us. Together we can reach more people through the message of Jesus Christ. And it takes existing churches to be sending churches to plant new churches. Let's do it together.